Hey everybody, Mike here from the Ohio Bigfoot Project, and today we're talking about topo maps. Now I picked one of my favorite places, Devil's Knob in Salt Fork State Park. Topo maps, as you can see, have a whole lot of lines in them, but not a lot of people realized all the little nuances about them. For instance, this map is completely flat, but because of the lines, it gives the optical illusion that it's contoured when it's really not. Well, these lines mark elevations and a lot of other little things. For instance, right up here in this area, when you run out of ridges like that, that's the very top of the hill. Okay, not that hard. But these little V's, to me, when I'm researching for Bigfoot, is something that I pay a lot of attention to. These little V's right here. Whenever you see a V going inwards, that's a ravine. Some people call them a coulee. Some people call them a gut. Some people call them a cut. Some people call them a hollow. Some people call them a holler. It's a ravine. Okay, these are just cuts in the hill. Now the thing about these is that whichever way these arrows point, water goes the opposite direction. So when you see these V's going inward, then anytime it rains, the water comes outwards. And then on this other side, you see this little like tip right here. Well, that's the hill going outward away from you. So if I was standing, or you was standing where the pin is up here, then this would be the hill cutting in towards you, while this over here would be the hill going out away from you. Pretty simple stuff. But these little points right here, like that, and like that one, and like that one, that's the flats. That's the tip of the elevation. So if you were standing here, then that's the end of the plane, and where you're standing, the hill is now going down and away from you. But in what way? The further these lines are apart, the more gradual the slope. So when you see where these lines are like super close together, that's a vertical climb. So this here is almost straight up and down. This here is a very, very, very gradual drop. Now from a hiking standpoint, if I wanted to climb up this hill, I don't want to go up this cut because A, I'm going to be in a valley, so I'm going to have high walls on both sides of me. But right through here it also gets pretty steep. You can come around and hike up the other side, but again, you're looking pretty steep. But if you come in from here and then cut up, which is how I usually approach it, it's a very gradual, light, stair-stepping climb. Now these dark lines, the dark line on top marks the end of the elevation. But if you notice, there's other dark lines in between here. Well, these dark lines are elevation markers. If you notice, none of these lines have anything on them, but this dark one here has 900. That's 900 feet above sea level. This dark line here has 1054. That's 1,054 feet above sea level. So from point A to point B is 154 feet above sea level. So, but if you look here, this is your 900 mark. This is your 1,054 point. Notice how from here to here, 900 to 1,000 is that far, but from here to here, it's that far. Okay, it's more spaced out. It's more gradual of a climb. Now, these lowlands, here you see one, here you see the hill bottoming out, and you see just a little tip of water right there. And you see some little pools down here. Well, in a Bigfoot standpoint, these tops up here, they suck for finding evidence. It's hard-packed ground, it's rocky. Generally speaking, very little footprints are left. All your footprints are going to be down here where the soil is wet and footprints can be made. Up here, it's hard-packed. Unless it's right after a rain, it's not going to be leaving any footprints. But I prefer these elevations. Why? Well, if I'm standing here, all I can see is as far as this line right here. I can't see any of this back here. All I can see is this immediate valley. If I'm standing over here, I can only see up to this line right here. And again, I can't see any of this, just this immediate valley. But if I'm standing up here, I can see down both sides of the hill, which increases my visual range for glassing. And that includes when the leaves are down, tree structures, and other evidence that can point to footprints or an area being active. Be right back after this commercial break. Okay. So now we're going to look at another one. Now this is mostly a valley here. You can see the lines come up, they go down. This is the lowland plain. Here is 1,000 foot, this border all the way around. This one here is unmarked, but this one is 900. This one's directly across, so we're going to assume it's 900 feet above sea level. Way out here we have 1,000. So 900 feet, 900 feet, 1,000 feet. 900 feet, 1,000 feet, 100 foot difference here, then a little bit more, probably another 100 foot. But here you can see the points a lot better. For instance, this is a point. So if you were standing here, the earth would be dropping away from you on both sides. If you were standing down here looking upward, the hill is cutting inward. Here, the water flows outwards because that's a V. Here's a V. The water flows this way. Here's a V. So the water comes down through here. Here's a V. So the water comes down through here. These are arches here, so the hill circles in front of you. Here's a plateau. If you notice, there's a great span between this line and this line. That's a big flat. It's a big flat in the middle of a hill. This is where you generally find nesting areas, hangouts, things like that. Because from up here you have a vantage point. You don't have to be up here, you can be here. If a hiker or any other thing that you would consider a threat came hiking down and you're up here and you can see it, well, now you can now elude down this gully and up and around the hill, so by the time that person climbs up there, you can actually wrap around and come right in behind them here to watch them and see what they're doing, know where they're going. It's a great tactic. I've been using these since 1992 for deer hunting, and to this day I still use them because if you have a topo map, which I use electronic maps now, you'll never get lost. For instance, if I know that I parked on the back side of this ridge and it's thick and green and I'm over here and I get twisted around, All I have to do is stand between these two gullies, and I know that I can go straight up this gully, straight over, and that down the point is where my vehicle is. Can't get lost with a topo map. I love them. Elevations, great. Valleys, great for evidence. Audio and glassing, which what I call glassing is just sitting on top of a hill for hours on end with binoculars or a spotting scope watching all of this. I can watch all of this, I can watch all of that, I can watch everything behind it. If I'm down in here, all I can see is the high walls. Down here is where the physical evidence as far as footprints is going to live. Up here. Now let's put all this into perspective from an audio recording angle. Okay, if I'm recording audio, here you can see all this red area that's lit up. Well, if you... Okay, so this red area, green cross hair right in the middle, the circle with the lines through it, roughly right here in the center. Well, if I was there with my audio recorder, then all that red shaded area is the area that my listening range would be. It would also be my line of sight range. Now, it's great for finding evidence, but as you can see, it's long, but it's very narrow. It's a very, very, very narrow window that you can both record or see. Now let's go up top the hill. Okay, so if you look at the pin, which is right here in the middle, right about there where that circle is, that's now my audio recording range from the top of the hill. It's also my line of sight range. It's what I can see. And if you notice, the area is much wider. It's forever wide, and it increased in length just a little bit. Not a whole lot, actually, but the width-wise, now my microphones can record a much larger area for evidence. And my line of sight is a much larger area for things moving. Now let me put that into perspective. Okay, if I'm standing in the bottom of the bowl, down in the bottom of the valley, this is what my microphones are going to hit. This is as far as they go. Okay, and you can see how the high wall blocks out a lot of the audio. Okay, like here I'm not going to record very far distance at all. Literally yards. Here I got a pretty good shot. Here not bad. Up the valley is pretty okay. Up this valley, up that finger, not bad. Up there, but here I have almost zero recording range. So now let's look at that from the top of the hill. Okay, now from the top of the hill, you can see I have a much greater range to glass, but also my microphones can go distances of over a mile. Look at how far that is out across there. This is from the top. This is the area that I can cover. When I showed you the first area, I was right down in that bottom right there. That's the high wall that we're on top of. But if you notice now, there's a much, much, much greater range that we can hit with the microphones and visually when the leaves are down and recording or glassing. It's just a much bigger range to be up top the hill. Okay, so back to the green screen. So here we have the hilltop. These V's, whatever the way the V is pointing, water runs the opposite direction. When you have a large spot between lines, that's a big flat. When you see these arches, that's the hill bowing out and around you. Here the hill's going out and down. Here the hill, you notice the lines are pretty sharp, almost go straight down. The greater distance between the lines, the more gradual the slope. These V's all mean that the hill cuts inward. It's a gap, it's a ravine, it's a washout. Up here is hard packed and not the greatest for physical evidence. Down here holds moisture, is great for physical evidence, but from up here is a better vantage point to look for tree structures and Bigfoot itself when glassing, especially when the trees are down, the vegetation's down. This is actually lake level here. This is one big bottom. You can see the little stream kind of shooting through there. So here's 900 feet, which would be this line. This dark line, 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet, 900 feet, probably about 700 feet. So from here to here is a 300-foot climb. That's a long area. It means a longer hike, but it means less gradual. From here to here is that same 300-foot climb, and literally from here to here. So you want to go up the gradual lines and come down the gradual lines. And that's topo maps in a nutshell. Not a lot of science behind them, just great. Outward X's or outward V's are points, meaning from here the ground drops away down this side of you. From here the ground drops away on this side of you. And from here the ground drops away right in front of you. So if you're walking, you're going down no matter which direction you go, left, right, or straight. Doesn't matter. The water's going to flow this way, which means a gut or a V or a ravine or a coulee or a hollow or a holler. So you're going to be in a high wall V. Now there is one time when these V's come in extremely handy during hot weather. When it's full sun, 90 degrees and humid, it might be 84 degrees in these V's. And those V's, because this is the way that water flows, the ground is moister, it's cooler, that cool air is coming up. So there's a temperature drop from here to here, even on the hottest days. These sharp V's, like this one, if you was in a really bad storm, you could get in here to get out of the wind. And I mean, that's about it. There's not a whole lot of science to them, but the bigger the area between the lines, that's just a big flat, literally a big flat. Usually where woodland meadows, things like that grow. You're usually grasslands, not always. Generally speaking, this area will be a little brushier. It makes a more livable habitat for sleeping, bedding areas, nest, things like that. If this is north, south, west, east, as the sun rises in the west, this is all going to be shaded. This is going to get sunshine first. This will get sunshine as the sun comes up. Now it's going to start to get sun in here. As the sun settles, this will be in full sun. This will be shaded. It's pretty basic, but still good information to have. And I highly suggest that you adapt topo maps into your research. Have a good night.